What's up, everybody? Welcome into episode 2 of Saber 2 Savant, your Nashville Predators podcast hosted by Cronio Media. Adam, thank you for being here with me. We've got a lot to talk about. It's been a couple weeks since we've talked about the Nashville Predators, but I'm ready to get back into it. First thing we're going to do today is we're going to look around the league, look around all the sports news sites, and take a look at some of the power rankings that they put out. And then we're going to take a close look at trophy odds and talk a little bit more about the Nashville Predators season, how it's looked thus far, and how it's going to be moving forward. Adam, once again, thank you for joining me. Any words about the Pred season? Any words about, how's your life going? How's your day going?
Oh, I'm doing well.
All right, cool. So let's get into the Nashville Predators. Go ahead.
I think the Preds are playing some good hockey. I think they've had a couple of slip-ups here in the past couple of weeks, but overall, been playing some pretty good hockey. They're going to have to keep it up, though, because that wild card race is tight.
Yep, absolutely. And it's been kind of a roller coaster season, especially for Nashville Predators fans. But you consistently look at the last 10, when you look at ESPN, you look at the standings, it shows you their last 10. It's been like pretty consistent. Like the record in their last 10 has pretty consistently been anywhere from like 5-5 to 7-3. Like there really hasn't been a full 10-game streak, at least since the first half of the season where they just went off and won a bunch of games. But here recently it's just kind of been up and down. I would like to see the numbers that they have against teams lower than 500 and then compare that to the numbers for teams above 500 or towards the top of the standings, because it seems like every time they play against a team they quote unquote shouldn't be beating by these power ranking standards that we're about to talk about, they come out on fire and they play real well. So it's been a really frustrating season. And even now here as we talk, Nashville's playing against the Senators, and it's a struggle for them a little bit after coming off of a 6-2 win against a team that was 9-0-1 in their last 10. But that's the story of the season so far. Like, not much you really do as a fan when your team is playing that way. You just kind of sit back and see what happens. But
right, yeah, I think that aspect of it has been a little frustrating, just from the side to where it feels like they do play up and down to competition at times. I mean, for example, they go out and destroy the Wild, but they also struggle against the Sabres. They struggled against games against the Flyers, stuff like that. Those were close games. I mean, they play well against the Ducks, but even in that second Ducks game, like a couple weeks ago, they did not play well. They won the game because the Ducks are so injured, but they didn't even play well. So it's just it's kind of hard to analyze the team when it's so many ups and downs. But overall, when you're beating good teams, it means something.
It means they're capable. Like, this is everything you dream of this team being. You see it whenever they play against a team that's up there at the top of their division, up there at the top of the league. And then everything that you're scared of with this Nashville Predators team, you see it in teams like in games against teams like Ottawa, teams like the Sabres. Like, it's just confusing to me. And it's not fun to watch necessarily because, on any given night, they can frustrate the living crap out of you. And that's what happens. But if one thing's for sure, and one thing's been steady, it's been Roman Josi. And I know I said we get into power rankings first, but this is what we're going to do instead. We're going to talk about Roman Josi because this guy's a stud. He scored another point tonight against the Senators. That's a game that's tied up 2-2 right now. He scored another point tonight, putting him at, I think it's 85. He's the 8th defender since in the salary cap era to hit 84 points. But
it's 85 points, and that was his 20th goal tonight.
His 20th goal. Okay, so he scored 2 points tonight. He's at 86 points tonight. Tonight,
because he had the assist on the Duchesne goal, and then he just scored. Yeah.
Yep. And he's got, how many games we got left? We played in 69 games. Nice. This is game 70. Nice. So including tonight, about 12 and a half games remaining. And I think he can definitely he's putting up like more than a point a game. So it's more than likely that he's going to hit triple digits, barring some fall off. But no matter what he does, you look at the odds, and this guy's going to be steady behind Cale Makar in every single ranking, every single Norris odds that you can think of. I don't love it. And we were talking about this before the podcast, like right before, and we were actually getting into some good analysis about it before we even started recording the show. But of course that happens, right? When you put a mic up to my face, I don't know what to say. So I try to gather my thoughts before the show. But Yossi, um, there's a guy on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen him, Jay Fresh. I think that's his. Jay Fresh Hockey is his handle name, and
Yeah, yeah.
He puts out these player cards that are real nice because they show you exactly what a player's competition, like what percentile the player's competition is, um, and like what percentile their offensive output is in, like compared to the rest of the league, right? And I do see like pretty evidently that Cale Makar is ahead of Roman Yossi in a lot of the measures that he puts out, right? That doesn't mean that these are scripture by any means, but Cale Makar is ahead in a lot of things as far as like his impact on his team and how it relates to the rest of the league. But it is frustrating because you know for a fact this team is not going anywhere without Roman at all. It's not, this
Right.
isn't a winning team without Roman. So this isn't a team 5 games above 500 or 11 games above 500, whichever way you want to look at it. So it's frustrating to see
Yeah.
him consistently ranked number 2 behind Cale Makar. So, and he doesn't have
Yeah,
Nathan McKinnon on his team either.
Right. I think it's tough just because, like you said, with the impact, the analytics are going to tell you that offensively, and especially on the defensive side, that it gives it to Cale Makar by a slight edge. It's not anything crazy, but it's a slight edge. But the thing that I keep going back to when it comes to these awards is I've said it for years, regardless of who is up for the award, like the points and the analytics solely cannot decide the award, especially when it's a situation like this with the Norris. Like if Yossi isn't having the best season from a Nashville Predator defender ever, then the Predators are not in a playoff spot. They're not even close. And right now, they've been in a wild card spot or above that for a couple months now. And that's been the case because of Roman Yossi, not because of anyone else. The lower half of the defensive core has been hurt for a good chunk of this span where they've been playing some of their best hockey, and that's because Yossi has stepped up along with the guys on the top line scoring. You'd like to see a little bit more balanced scoring, but regardless, you're getting the production from Yossi with either those top guys or even the guys when you look around and you see a guy like Yakov Trenin making plays or Tanner Jeannot with the incredible season he's had. It's set
Hey, you're
up
cutting
by
out a
the
little bit.
safety
I'm
net.
just letting you know for the recording. It's not
Oh,
anyone on anyone else's end. He is cutting out. Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit here, but like I definitely understand where you're coming from. Like you can make the argument that, maybe that top line on the offense has set this team apart as well, but just think about it. This team is like barely holding on. If either of those two things are gone, right? That crazy production, definitely two almost 50 goal scorers. I'm going to say by the end of the season, both of these guys are going to have 40 goals. It's obvious. I mean, Matt Duchene scored again tonight. Um, these guys are going to have 40 goals and they're going to be pushing 250 goal scorers. You don't see that out of teams not named Edmonton. So it's been nice to have because we haven't had this type of scoring in the past. But also Roman Yossi's presence is a huge thing as well. You take away any one of those two things, this team, like you said, nowhere near where they are right now. So 100%, nobody impacts his team quite like Roman Yossi does on both the offensive and defensive end. Now, there are defensive metrics that say Cale Makar has been better. He's played the penalty kill more, at least by Twitter opinions and Twitter stats and the things I see on Twitter. But that doesn't make much sense to me. I mean, I know, typically you're going to pass off those elite offensemen to your better defensemen. There's this argument that no, like, Matthias Ekholm and Fabro are the ones that are really getting the best scores. And yeah, I mean, that makes sense. They're the best defenseman on the team, but that doesn't mean that Roman Yossi isn't also playing against those top line sort of guys and playing really well against them too. And that doesn't mean that he's not leading this, this defense in the right direction and shoring up all of its very obvious faults. You know what I'm saying?
And I think a piece of it too that people have to keep in mind, because people are going to discuss the fact that the Ekholm and Carrier pairing, or whoever's with Ekholm, has been playing against some of that top competition. But you also have to keep in mind how much Yossi is playing in the big moments. When the game is close in the third period, Yossi is on the ice a ton. And so regardless of the line that he's up against, it's the biggest moments of the game, and he's on the ice, not these other defensive pairings. And so when you talk about it with him compared to Makar as well, because you a lot of people want to point to the defensive metrics at the top for Makar. I do think that he has been a little better defensively when it comes to the analytics, but you also have to keep in mind that he's on the ice a lot with their top two lines. And it is helpful on defense when your offense is
Yep.
doing what those top two lines do.
Yeah,
When
it's consistent pressure. How do you truly
yeah,
push when you have those other guys on the ice ready to just break away at any given moment?
right.
Like you're a little
Yeah,
more
because it's so explosive. That team is so explosive, especially at the
Mhm.
top with the speed that they have. So it's like these defensemen, not to take anything away from Makar, he's been awesome. But when you have the speed that you do with their guys at the top, it makes the other team have to be back on their skates just a hair at the very least, which does slow down the pace for the other team, because they know that if they try to speed up to the speed that Colorado plays with, it's not going to work. It's not going to work out. Not for a full 3 periods. You can hang with
Mhm.
them for a period, but it's not going to work out.
Yep. Yeah, that top line, I think that's playing over there is McKinnon, Landeskog, and Rantanen. So like
Yeah,
that Rantanen is the leading scorer on his team, by the way. Um,
right.
Makar is not. He's in third place behind obviously Nazem Kadri and then Rantanen. Um, but yeah, like how do you stop that? Like three guys on your line that are 60 plus points right now, right? Like we were just mentioning, it's a really explosive offense. So obviously you're going to have better defensive metrics. Um, but there's also statistics that say that Makar has played better competition. Sure, it's easy to put your best defender out there when your offense is that good. So um, yeah, definitely. So we'd like to see Yossi win the trophy, and for the longest
He
time there,
just
we thought
he
he was
just
going
got
to
a third
be.
point
He
tonight.
just got a third point.
A
Did they?
third
Is it
point.
4-2 now?
Johansson. No, he got the assist on the Johansson
Oh, on the
goal,
Johansson goal.
the
That was
power play goal
originally
to take the lead
unassisted.
3-2. And again, that you look at that, there's 6 minutes left to go in the third period, and Yossi gets the assist on a possibly a game-winning goal because they just took the lead 3-2.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Yeah.
those things, and it's happening so consistently.
Yep. Yep. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, we want Roman to be the guy at the end of the year, hoisting that trophy for the second time in his career. But when you're competing against a market like Colorado that's been around for, it hasn't been around forever, but it's been in the spotlight on numerous occasions, and people love Colorado. I mean, when you're thinking of West Coast teams, you think of Colorado and you think of the Los Angeles Kings. Those are two teams that are consistently in the spotlight. You don't think of Nashville as one of those teams in the Western Conference, despite how good their fans are and how much of a splash they make. Their superstars are always going to be set back just because of, the smaller arena. It's Nashville, Tennessee. They don't think Southerners know their hockey, and it's tough to see. It's tough to see. So he definitely deserves
Right.
he deserves more respect than he gets, but he still gets plenty. So that's good to see. Yeah, just to sum that up, the odds for Makar right now, according to Sports Betting Dime, they have Makar at minus 275 for the trophy, and at Yossi at plus 240. So it's probably not going to happen. They're pretty much always right about the trophies and things like that. And as long as Makar keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to be good. But yeah, so let's go around now and let's take a look at the power rankings that Sports News decided to put out, unfortunately, this week. I think all three of these though were before the Minnesota Wild game. No, actually, this might not have been. Yeah, it was before the Minnesota Wild game. All three of them. Um, as y'all know, the Nashville Predators beat the Minnesota Wild, a team that had gone undefeated in regulation for 10 straight games, maybe even more than that. They beat them 6-2. It was on their home ice, but it came 2 weeks after they had beaten the same team on Minnesota's home ice by the same score. So, um, but it's frustrating to look around and see these power rankings every single week. I don't think Nashville's been above number 13 all season long, and they just went down again. After two straight games of giving up 6 goals, the ESPN power rankings pushed them down to number 17. And that's the one I want to talk about because ESPN does this thing where they put notes after their, not nuggets, notes. They put little notes after each of their rankings. And this week's was which player on the Nashville Predators has the most pressure on them. And I thought to myself, I saw the headline, I was like, yeah, it's UC Saros. Like, it makes sense. He just faced 47 shots in that game against Minnesota. I know, like I said, it came after the Minnesota game, but UC Saros is second or third in goals saved above expected this year, which means that, he saved 13 goals that should have gone in, essentially, is what that means. He's by far got the most pressure, but ESPN said Matthias Ekholm. What do you think about that?
I mean, I understand it to a degree with the lack of depth that the Preds have had on defense for part of the year, for most of the year, honestly. But like you said, it's got to be Roman or it's got to be Use simply because they're the ones that are leading this charge to keep them in the playoffs. If I'm gonna say it's anybody outside of those two, I'm gonna go with like a Mikhail Granlund, a guy that they probably need more from offensively, who's caught some bad breaks, especially here in the last few games. I feel like he's been more involved, like on the power play and just in general on offense. I think he's been more involved, and he just really hasn't got the puck to go his way. But yeah, for it to be Ekholm, it's odd. I get it to a degree, but he's probably like my fourth or fifth choice for that
Yeah.
title as of right now.
Yeah, and interesting point you make about Mikhail Granlund because it's like it has a ring of truth to it because he no longer is on a line that consistently produces goals and racks up the assists for him. Like, don't forget at the beginning of this year, until Yossi decided to go on this maniacal stretch of just getting 2, 3, 4 points a game. Mikhail Granlund was your assist leader for the Nashville Predators for a lot of the season, playing on the second line. He didn't get to play with Philip Forsberg this year. This guy hasn't been first line, I don't think, all year. I mean, it's weird to see him up there with Forsberg and Duchesne because Ryan Johansson has become so effective as being a facilitator. Now he's not being pressured to score 20 plus goals. So now he's a good facilitator and he's still going to score 20 plus goals because of the help around him. But yeah, Mikhail Granlund, he's second on the team in assists. But like you mentioned earlier, the depth of scoring has been an issue, and he's the guy that Nashville relies on to move the puck around and get people in good spots on the ice to, because there's not going to be a lot of guys that snipe being on the first line. Like, it's going to be Duchesne, Johansson, Forsberg. Those are your snipers. Everyone else is the dirty, gritty guys, and that's exactly what Mikhail Granlund is. And those are the opportunities he sets up around the net. So, yeah, you're definitely right. If we're going to see any more depth of scoring come out of this Nashville team, if you're going to juice as many points as you can out of this team, it's going to have to come from Mikhail Granlund. So, yeah, 100% right about that. No, yeah. That's the ESPN ranking. And then similar things out of CBS and NBC. CBS has them at 16. NBC has them at 17. And it's not so much like the rankings themselves that bother me. It's the teams ahead of them. It's the same teams that Nashville has beaten consistently over the past couple of weeks. Like, we look at the Wild. The Wild's all the way up at 9. Like, they're going to stay up there. But okay, Vegas. I mean, I understand Vegas, LA. We didn't have too good of games against them. Um, so maybe it's not so bad. Maybe these rankings are not so bad. But
Well,
but
the thing that I look at is they're kind of ranking these teams how they are right now, and so I understand they've kind of sent Vegas up a few spots, especially in the CBS when they rose 4 spots in a week,
yeah,
and
yeah.
because they've won 5 straight leading up to these rankings. But you also got to look at what the team actually is right now, and that Vegas is just they have a lot of big injuries, and I can't see them being the 12th best team right now. But you
No.
also just look at the other teams that are ahead of them. Like I don't really understand how you put Dallas ahead of them right now,
No
because the
way.
Preds they've played great hockey against Dallas so far this year. If you're going to put a team that's around the Preds in the ranking or in the standings ahead of the Preds right now, then you got to put like St. Louis, put the Blues ahead of them. They've played good hockey over the last couple of months, and even late they haven't been bad. But that's a team that I would think would be ahead of them in the rankings on CBS, but yet they're the team that's behind them. And you look around and you have teams that are struggling, like the Capitals or like Dallas, ahead of the Preds. So it is just kind of odd. I think it's when you look at the rankings and it's like 11 to 18. Or really 11 to 17, that range is very nitpicky because these teams are within like 3 games of each other, and it's like 7 different
Yeah,
teams.
that's the one spot that
So
kind of like shifts around so much during the season,
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Because I mean, if you have an off week and you lose 3 games in a week, you're going to drop from being, maybe the 10th ranked team to being 19. Because you see like what Winnipeg was doing up until about a week ago. Winnipeg was playing some of the best hockey in the league for nearly a month, and they were getting back into contention and playing some really good hockey. They have a bad week, they drop in the power rankings, and now they're 33, 28, and 10, and it's really hard to see them getting really close to a playoff spot.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's as a fan, obviously we're gonna be upset when we move down that list, but there really is like this tiering system when it comes to power rankings. Like it's your top five are gonna stay the same pretty consistently. I think
Hmm.
that they've kept Calgary, Colorado, Tampa Bay, Boston, and Florida up there just like consistently. Those are your best of the best teams, and one could argue that maybe Colorado's in a tier of its own right now, but that's going to be your first team, and then 5 through 10 that's going to be your second, and then 11 through 16, 17, 18 are going to be those teams that are on the bubble exactly where they are in the standings. But I do feel like it's really lazy for anybody, and all three rankings did this too, to put Dallas ahead of Nashville just because they have a better record like recently. And it's not by much. Like in the last 10 games, Nashville 6-4, Dallas is 7-3. But when people look at power rankings, you got to know, right, that your credibility is going to take a hit if you make a bad decision, right? I know, Adam, do you ever write power rankings at all?
Not really. I discuss them kind of when it comes to like the NFL in the middle of the season. But for the most part, I don't really write them simply because I think it's easier to look at like tiers of teams, like
Yeah.
teams that are contending, teams that are on the bubble, and teams that are bad.
Yeah.
Like it's really what it comes down to, because that's what even these rankings are, and these are 3/4 away through the season.
Yeah, and especially in hockey, like each tier is really cannibalistic, right? Like tier three
Hmm.
teams are going to beat tier three teams consistently. Like
Hmm.
the number 12 team is going to lose to the number 17 team, and the number 14 team is going to lose to the 15. It really doesn't matter where you are in your tier. So I agree. I think that's a reform that we should look forward to, and we should propose and stop doing this 1 through 32 bullcrap, and maybe do this tier one, tier two, tier three. Like
Yeah,
it makes sense, but yeah. So
yeah,
that's
because
all we got. Sorry,
because
go
it's
ahead.
just
My bad.
it's just kind of pointless when I see the Canadians at 21 and their record is 19, 40, and 11.
Yeah, like
They're 10 spots ahead of a team that has a better record than them, and it's just like people are going to argue with these rankings, and it's like, what are you even arguing with? Because the Canadians are not the 21st best team in hockey. It's
Right.
really just to get a ride out of people.
Right. Yeah, it's to get the clicks. That really is all what
Yeah.
journalism is in the first place. Anyways, not to bash you or anything. You want to get your clicks, you get your money. But that's what it is. Like obviously obviously nobody really cares about what anybody has to say. So all right, well, I guess that's it for the show. Just to recap the show, we looked at power rankings, trophy odds, and all the little crap in between. Adam, thank you for being on the second show with me, and this has been Sabretooth Savant. Have you got any parting words before we go?
Not a whole lot. Let's jump back on here later next week, and hopefully Yossi is the favorite for the Norris. I don't see it, but
He
fingers
better be.
crossed.
Better be. If he
Three
wins
more
another
points
first,
tonight. Three
yeah,
more
if
points
he wins
tonight, man.
another first star of the week, another first star of the month, I don't see anybody else being
Yeah.
the trophy winner. But
Yes,
all
sir.
right, I guess my parting words of wisdom is just because it isn't doesn't mean it ain't. All right, thank y'all for listening in. This has been Sabretooth Savant.